Welcome to the Nurse Dad Podcast.
Hello, ladies and gents. I'm RN Glenn, aka Nurse Dad, former Navy hospital corpsman, current ER nurse, and host of the Nurse Dad podcast, available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And I want to get on quickly to the future presentation, Tammy Scott. Tammy, thank you for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate this.
Thank you.
Tammy,
I'm honored to be on.
Thanks a lot, Tammy. You were an ER nurse in the St. Louis area, I believe.
Yes, in St. Louis County.
In St. Louis County, you were working triage when you were attacked. Before we roll into that, just a little bit of your background, if you don't mind, because I know you said flight nurse, and up until that moment, I just want to paint a little picture of what you'd done before that.
Oh, goodness. As a nurse, you know how it is. We have multiple jobs. So we take on many jobs. I did my preceptorship in ICU, went into ER, and worked immediately after graduation. Trauma nurse. I was a flight nurse for nearly 5 years, trauma nurse for nearly 20 years, PACU nurse. I got to be a cruise ship nurse. I've done so many wonderful things. Honestly, I've had a great career.
I haven't had as diverse a career as that, but I do like to think I was searching a lot. When you have a background going from flight to cruise ship, was there anything within the field that you were looking for? Was there anything maybe even within yourself?
I always love to challenge myself, right? What is the next thing to learn? What is the next accomplishment? I hate to call it that because I can't say it was necessarily to accomplish. I just love learning. I love to better my skills. The reason I became a nurse was out of the love of doing medical mission work, actually. So I started with going with a PA. He was doing medical mission work in Haiti. I went with him a few times. I just fell in love with it and taking care of the people. And I thought I could serve them even better if I become a nurse. So I did. And I started my own nonprofit and took some of the nurses and CNAs from the ER I worked in to Haiti. And I've gone to China. So I did all of that as well. I think that's what drives most of us into healthcare, right? Is we really want to contribute to helping others, especially those who are in the most dire need. And that's really what got me started into it. And then I just loved it. And I loved what I was learning. And then I loved to teach. And I just kept climbing that ladder, sadly.
You talk about things like in and of themselves would be a career choice, like running a nonprofit and going to Africa, going to Haiti. And the fact that it made you want to escalate your knowledge and become a nurse. And yeah, very commendable, very commendable. The only experience I have in that situation was when I was attached to the Marines on deployment. We went to Djibouti in Africa and East Africa for certain missions. And I really got to, as a medical provider, do some work with the locals. It's such a humbling experience to see what other people are grateful for. And it's remarkable that people overseas tend to be grateful for things we never would even consider were things worth being grateful for.
Yeah, it's true. What's beautiful about it is you think you're going to give and bless others, and you leave there being so blessed yourself.
Which really helps you back home when you're in the muck and you're dealing with the system, or you're dealing with whatever it is that would stress out any nurse or any healthcare professional. That gift that you receive, that peace, really goes a long way.
Yeah.
So I was watching you on Nurse Erica's podcast. She's also been on this podcast, and I purposely did not want to hear everything. But going back, you were in the St. Louis County. I know you were working triage that morning. Could you please go into what had happened to you? Hello, ladies and gents. I'm RN Glenn, aka Nurse Dad, former Navy hospital corpsman, current ER nurse. And if you like what we do here on the Nurse Dad podcast, please go to mynursedad.com and hit subscribe. Thank you very much. And of course, stay hungry, be humble, Nurse Dad out.
Yeah, I was working triage. I most often worked triage just because of my experience. And it was around 11:20 in the morning on a Monday morning when I was triaging a man who had chest pain, getting his vital signs, asking him all the questions as you do. And where the triage desk is at DePaul Health Center in Bridgeton, Missouri, is maybe 40 feet from the front doors. So there's a little more to that, but there's really no barrier. They did not have metal detectors at the time, no security posted out in triage. So you're just really a sitting duck. However, and the woman who attacked me did not walk in through the front doors. She was brought in by EMS and sent out to triage. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
And nonetheless, there was no security system whatsoever for any of that at the time. It was pretty much myself and a tech out there in triage in North County, St. Louis, managing everything. I was triaging this man, and I don't recall several minutes before I was initially stabbed. I don't recall a few minutes of it. I don't know why, but I was triaging him, and out of nowhere was a blow to the right side of my head. And you know how things go through your mind, just split seconds. I initially thought it was a oxygen tank exploded because I heard metal, right? So I looked over, and standing over me with a butcher knife was Jamissa Rivers, my attacker. And I realized at that moment I was stabbed in the head. So I saw her coming at me again.
Would this be the ear that you were talking about? Was that the first blow through your ear?
Yeah, the first blow went through the ear. Yeah. So I saw her coming at me again. I put my arm up like this, and actually she stabbed through my arm, through in between the tendons and the bones, missing the tendons, missing the arteries. And believe it or not, that's such a miracle. After she stabbed my arm, I moved my arm, and she stabbed me again in the neck. At that point, the man that I was triaging pushed me off my stool so she couldn't stab me again.
So the patient came to the rescue at that moment.
He pushed me away from her. And as I fell to the floor, that's when I felt the arterial blood. I knew it was arterial. It was very hot. I knew where I had already been injured. Clearly, the carotid artery is there. And all I thought was, I have to get up. I have to get up and run to the trauma room. It didn't even occur to me to expect anyone to save me.
Yeah.
You know, it was just, I'm going to save myself, just not waiting for this. I have literally seconds.
You know the process.
So I held pressure on it like that was doing any good. I don't know. And there was a hallway, and I could see that I had a clearing because I could see from the floor that there were scuffling and beat, and someone must have been subduing her. I did not know at that time that the paramedic working in the ER with me, who was sitting behind me, she stood up when I was being stabbed and also saw that she could intervene somehow. When she saw Rivers had a knife, she turned, not wanting to get stabbed herself, and she was stabbed in the back. So she was also injured. So during all of that, I ran down the hallway to the trauma room and laid down on a stretcher and waited for somebody to come save me.
Even this whole process, still no security. Like still no, I guess people were subduing her at that time, but it just seemed like a long period of time, as short as it seems.
Yes, considering where I told you where the entry doors were, not too far from the desk.
Right.
Directly to the right of the entry doors is where security office is, and that's where they all were gathered. So really, literally just feet. However, still paramedics, patients, and others intervened before security came out. I really didn't stick around long enough to know how it all went down, and I've never watched the videos. It was all on surveillance. I've never watched it. But a lot of this I know from what people have told me, including my attorney.
You work at a level 1 trauma, I'm assuming?
It was a level 2.
Level 2?
It was at the time a level 2. Yeah.
And you must have just ran into that room, and I guess everyone was alerted, right?
Yes, definitely. So the tech that I was working with, who was sitting next to me, checking in Ms. Rivers, uh, recognized she is not acting right. Let me back up. I had to be really careful about what I say regarding how she arrived with EMS because that is in litigation currently. So Jamissa Rivers called 911 with abdominal pain, wanting to go to the ER. They passed up one ER to come to our ER, which is, we're not really sure why. I have speculation. Her complaint was abdominal pain. Somehow she wound up out in triage. I don't know if the charge nurse sent her out there or if the medic just decided to bring her out to triage. That's still yet to be discovered. However, when she was brought out to triage to check in while I was taking care of the man with chest pain, the tech also did registration. And she was registering the patient and she said, hey, she's not acting right. Something's not right with her. And she said, I'm going to call the charge nurse and say, we need to get her back to a room because anyone who's suicidal, homicidal, or in psychosis is not allowed to be out in triage. That's just common in most any ER. So as the tech was calling the charge nurse, this is what I'm understanding. That is when Jamissa Rivers said, I need to go to the bathroom. Instead of walking around to go to the bathroom, she walked completely around the desk, pulled out her knife, and came to me and stabbed me.
Makes you also want to expand the fact that EMS should probably do a search of patients that they're bringing in, at least certainly if they're not actively coding, or in this case, it seemed like a pretty routine operation to at least make sure that people don't have things on their person.
Yeah.
Yeah. I worked at a hospital once where somebody was in the hospital for 3 days, and when she collected her purse, she dropped it and a gun came out. Just like little things like that.
Those things happen quite often in St. Louis. Actually, the area where I worked was known for having a lot of violence. The hospital in which I worked had multiple attacks. Multiple healthcare professionals were attacked. It was commonplace every week in the ER, at least every week, for someone to have been punched, knocked out. Severe attacks. And they were reported. Incident reports were filed. Never made any changes.
Yeah.
The day after I was stabbed, of course, it was all over the local news. And suddenly that ER had metal detectors and security posted 24/7 the day after I was attacked.
The day after, which I'm sure they made it like it was such an arduous task, like pushing a boulder uphill every time you requested it to get metal detectors in. And I'd say those metal detectors still were not there for the safety of the staff. They were there for the media. They were there to save face.
Certainly, yeah. One of their excuses for not putting them in before was they didn't want to alarm the patients and make the patients think it's an unsafe area. It was clearly an unsafe area and an unsafe emergency department. It really did not make any sense.
Such a
for them.
BS excuse. I remember during COVID when we were in Queens, where like head to toe were covered up, and they were just so insistent that we wear, on top of everything else, a badge about this big with our face on it, because so that people could see that we're people. And I'm like, I didn't think that. So now you're dressed like from head to toe, and you have a badge, like almost like a laminated piece of paper. And
Leadership is so extremely detached from the realities of what go on in the trenches. They are so extremely detached. And sadly, their only connection to be attached is through what we tell them. This is what's occurring. This is what's concerning. And it's brushed off. It's ignored, or there are excuses made, or they create a team and a committee and we're going to assess it. And they spend months doing nothing and then it disassembles.
Yeah.
It's so ineffective. Hospitals are so reactive instead of proactive. All of this could have been mitigated so easily Clearly, it was very easy for them to put in the metal detectors and post security because they did it immediately after my attack. There was no barrier in the first place other than the will to do it.
How did they respond to you once you were in the trauma room, getting you from the room to
Yeah.
surgery and then also having to go back to work?
Yeah. So back to were they alerted? Yes. So the tech that was checking her in recognized all of this was going on. She was also in nursing school at the time, very astute. Once I was stabbed, she jumped over the desk and ran to the trauma room and said, "Everyone in here now, Tammy's been stabbed." She didn't know I was already running in there. So it was all hands on deck at that
Just
point.
that alone, that
And
response could have been a lifesaver right there. Precious seconds that were not wasted.
yes, any chance I get to praise the team that I worked with, I do, because they saved my life. And
Yeah.
I know I was just messaging with one of them last night who I haven't communicated with until just the last couple of days. And she was the trauma nurse who ran directly to the blood bank to get the trauma blood. She did not wait. She saw that I was covered in blood and she just ran to get the trauma blood immediately.
Really good
Um,
response.
Lifesaver right there. Her boyfriend, actually in the ER, a paramedic who worked there, phenomenal paramedic, phenomenal nurse. He held pressure on my neck the entire time until I got to OR.
Wow. How long did it
Yeah.
take
I
you?
mean,
How long was the process?
from what I understand, it was 11 minutes from the time, and it felt like forever to me. But yeah, from the time I was in the trauma room until I got to OR. And at that point, I believe only 3 units of blood had been rapidly transfused, and I was still hypovolemic. I was passing out.
It's a miracle
I
in
was,
in and of itself that in that much time you didn't bleed out, especially between from it happening to running to trauma with your heart rate. The fact that you're here, the fact it's really incredible.
there were so many miracles. I love to talk about the miracles. And one is the trauma team was already all in-house. All the trauma doctors, the nurse practitioners, they had just finished a meeting. So
Wow.
the vascular surgeon was in-house when it happened. I do have to clarify though, it was not my carotid artery branch, it was my external carotid artery that comes out through here. That is why I was able to get up and run and why I survived so well. If it had been the main
Well, it's no
branch.
big deal. I don't even know why I invited you on the podcast. It was
Sorry to let you
oh,
down. It was
it
said it
was
was the external carotid artery.
external carotid. All right. All right. Let's not go overboard now.
So
You're very
nonetheless,
humble.
I guess it's just the trauma nurse in me is trying to be realistic. But yeah, that team was so phenomenal. And it always makes me emotional to talk about it because I had worked with so many of them for so long. I being there for almost 20 years and having work trauma. So you know how the turnover is in an ER and how young many of them are. The one holding the pressure on my artery was the same age as my youngest son. These were like my work children. Many of them came to me for advice. I was one of the OGs. They would come to me for, how does this work? How do you do that? And I loved mentoring them. And there they were saving my life. And I'm just so proud of them. I'm just so proud of how they knew exactly what to do. They stayed so calm under pressure. They saved my life. And what is also very difficult is knowing that they had to clean it up, clean up that trauma room, and get back to work afterwards.
What time did it happen at? You said a meeting, so it was like earlier in the day?
It was around 11:20 in the morning. I think we were all just so severely traumatized, honestly. It's really difficult. Even the paramedic who was stabbed as well, we had the hearing just in April for the woman who attacked us. And I saw her and we stayed in touch at first and then we lost contact. And I wound up telling her, I said, Kayla, I apologize that I have not stayed in contact. There are many times that I picked up my phone to contact you, and I thought, maybe she's having a good day. And I don't want to remind her, because I know how hard it is to get through each day. And if you're having a good day, or it's not dragging you down, or it's not heavy, and something reminds you, it's
Which in
like,
this case, it's you as a person. You're the reminder, which is quite something.
yeah,
It's quite something that you're carrying. That really is something. It happened to you, but I'm a reminder of her trauma, which is no fault of yours. That's a real burden to have to carry.
yeah, I'm a very protective person by nature. I always want to think of others. In fact, the trauma doctor that was at my side immediately, I was so grateful because I had known him since 2005. This was 2022. And I recall asking him, is anyone else hurt? How is everyone? Did any of the patients get hurt? I was so worried about everyone else. And he leaned over and he said, Tammy, this is just like you. It's like, you're the sickest person in this ER. Let us take care of you. There's such a weird response psychologically. There was a moment where I thought, I'll just get some stitches and I'll get back to work. The line is probably lining up out the door with triage patients. It's just so crazy, the things that you
Not that you
think.
were thinking that. You are dedicated. Some people be like,
Yeah,
the hell with these patients.
I know. And that was, it actually was dedicated to a fault in many ways. But yeah, it's just talking about the staff that saved me. I'm so proud of them.
When was it that
I
you
really am.
finally came to that you were in a state where you could sit up, speak, talk to people? What were those initial deficits that you were dealing with?
Yeah, those were rough days.
I speak because I'm not to that degree, but I've had a
Yeah.
few things befall me, and that initial coming to, it's rough, like you were just saying. I'm just curious what it was
It
like for
is.
you.
You awaken, and there's for that split moment, even for months afterwards, after sleeping, there's that split moment where you realize, oh, that happened.
Right.
That was real. Or when you're waking up, it's all forgotten for just a second. And I recall the ICU nurse stopping my propofol and Presidex and everything that I was on because they could not keep me sedated. I was pulling out my art line. I was still fighting. I was just like, get me out of here.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lay in this bed, even though I was sedated. And he stopped it and he said, Tammy, I need you to wake up and understand you're okay. You're okay. And I immediately started doing this. I want to write because I was still intubated, which is not fun. And I specifically wrote down, can I talk? And he said, yes. I wrote down, how do you know? Because as I was rolling into OR, I was coughing up blood. And one of my greatest fears my whole life has been losing my voice, ironically. And I remember at that moment, in fact, I was sure I was dying. And I had this, I would call a near-death experience. I did not code, but I have another story for that. But I was really concerned that I would lose my voice. And my voice is still not the same. The quality is still not the same. I don't swallow. The peristalsis of my esophagus on the right side doesn't work. So I choke on food. So my voice quality sometimes can be a little rough. But I was so concerned that I could not speak. That was my first questions. How can I talk?
We all have
And
fear of blindness, and it's very valid. But it's communication, especially when you love to communicate, and you're obviously outgoing. I can see that.
yeah, it's just so important to me. And then it all started to come to me and I realized what happened. And I thought to myself, the very thing that we always said in that ER, it's not a matter of if it happens, it's a matter of when it happens.
Right.
And it happened to me.
And I'm sure
And
all the staff, it was like you were them, they were you. That situation could happen to anybody. It was so random.
I saw that in their eyes. Everyone who circled around my stretcher in that trauma room, their eyes were so big and they were so frightened. And I've always been a very intuitive person. I could feel what people are thinking. And not only was it that they were fearing I would die, but it's like I could feel that they were thinking this could have been me. It could have been anyone. It could have been a patient.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, in those first days, just the realization that a nightmare was true actually occurred. And then doctors were coming in and assessing me, and they were asking me to raise my eyebrows, to smile. Like, okay, they're doing neuro checks. That's fine. And I realized that the right side of my face was not working at all. And I was like, why is this not working? And the trauma doctor said, we're hoping that it was just a compression of your right facial nerve, but we fear it was severed. And I said, oh, okay, so if it's severed, I stay like this forever. It didn't occur to me there were operations and things that I could do to help it. And at that point, and again, this trauma doctor had known me for so long, and
Permanence
I
is
think he
coming
would do
to
this.
you, the permanence of certain things. You're not just going to be able to get up and get back to work at some point.
Even in that ICU before I was transferred to another hospital for surgery, I was still like, I pushed the call light. I was like, I got into the bathroom. Okay, I'll just do it.
Yeah.
Here I am. I'm
Nurses are the
recovering
worst
from.
patients. Is that true?
And even the charge nurse in that ICU who I had worked with many years before, he was just coming in. He said, why are you getting out of bed? I said, I gotta go to the bathroom. You took out my catheter. I laugh about these things, but it really was absolutely devastating. And I'll never forget that first time I went into the bathroom. I washed my hands and I looked up and looked in the mirror. And I was mortified. Mortified. I'm sure you can tell that the right side of my face doesn't work the same as my left. A lot better than it did then. It was 100% paralyzed. Blood just
You look
matted
great,
in my
by the way.
hair.
By the way, you carry yourself so well. You look great. You sound great. It's incredible what you've overcome. So
Well, thank you.
that's all I
Thank
have
you.
to
It's
say about that.
I'm a very tenacious person. I was just devastated and I cried and cried. And the realization was there. It wasn't just, I can feel it. I have people telling me these things. I looked in the mirror, I could see it. And I still had dried blood under my fingernails, just matted in my hair. And I just looked straight out of a horror film. And the trauma doctor who recognized that he felt like my facial nerve was severed came to me, and I guess it was on the third day morning. And he said, I found a physician at Barnes, which is Washington University in St. Louis, who is willing to do a nerve transfer and try to reconnect to your facial nerve. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't know that was possible. So then I got transferred there. I had a very extensive surgery where I had grafts taken from the back of my head. They retrieved the nerve. They had to go through my mastoid bone that's missing in the back here. Reconnected my nerve. And they said, we don't know if it'll work. It's a 50-50 chance. We'll see. And I said, it's going to work.
Did it work?
Yeah, considering this whole side of my face did not work, I'm like, I was talking like this. Anyone with Bell's palsy that you've ever seen, I would say it's about 50% recovered, but it's enough that I want to say it's enough that I'm happy with it. I'm not, but that was just one of the many injuries that I sustained. I don't see well out of my right eye anymore. I have a weight in my right eyelid just to make sure that it closes. Chronic migraines, chronic pain. A portion of my sternocleidomastoid was severed, so it's difficult for me to move my head. Or there's a lot, but and the hardest part really was just the psychological and emotional recovery.
Where does your mind
Very
go during this to stay hopeful and positive? For you specifically, what kept you afloat?
pure will and determination and love for myself.
Was there an outright stubbornness during it all? Like, I'm not going to let this biatch, part of my French, bring me down,
Well,
or this attacker, I should probably have said attacker. Sometimes a dose of ego, it is helpful. When the weight of life is on your shoulders, sometimes a little dash of ego does help.
indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah. For instance, when the patient pushed me to the floor so she couldn't stab me again, I thought she got me to the floor. So I refused to let my head hit the floor. So no, I didn't. You're not getting me down. Some of it is that. Yeah, I've just always been a very tenacious person. If you say I can't, I will show you I will, and I'll do it better than anyone else. That's just the kind of person I've always been. But it's interesting that you ask that because it's a much deeper conversation. I don't even know if we would have time to go into it all today.
Probably
But
not, but some echoes of it.
Yeah,
That's what I do, Tammy. I
it
take
was
a
a really,
conversation and I derail it in a whole different direction. No, I won't do that.
that's okay. I have that ADD ER nurse I can track.
No,
Um,
I've been through a few things and I just know and genuinely curious when you're at rock
Yeah, it
bottom.
really, what it did is it taught me so many beautiful lessons. And for a while, I was so upset and mortified. I was at the pinnacle of my career. As I explained in the beginning, I loved my career. That was taken. I will never work in a hospital like that again. I cannot. Just being in public is frightening to me. I lost my income. I lost my sense of safety. I lost my sense of beauty. I lost so many things. And I remember just being so mortified, like all of this has been taken from me. And coming from a childhood of abuse and having nothing, being a 16-year-old mother, working hard to attain what I did and seeing it all just wiped out. I was mad. I was hurt. I had moments where I was like, what is this? Why did this happen? And there aren't answers for it. And I recall thinking, I hate cliches and I hate that there's a reason for everything. Because I would think, we don't know that. We don't know if it's just chaotic randomness. And then I decided I will make the reason. I will decide what the reason is for this. And the reason is I want to work to make sure this never happens to anyone else again. I have to recover first, but this is my mission. This is now my career. And I realized everything that I thought was taken from me really never mattered. I'm aging. I'm going to lose my beauty. I'm aging. I'm going to retire at some point. I can regain my sense of safety. I can always get money again. Money's just energy. I'll get it again. But what cannot be taken from me is my essence, my soul, my sense of who I am. No one can take that from me. And who I am is a woman of great power, as we all have, because we all have God within us. And once I recognized that, that is what got me through each day.
We all get victimized, but then you have to make a decision at some point. Do you want to stay in that space or do you want to leave it? And some people don't leave
It's a
it. Some
choice.
people retreat to the bottle or whatever it is. The fact that you can come to the conclusion that all the things that was taken from you that you really relied on, that you don't need them, that's incredible. That's not something everybody can do.
I like to say it's a choice, but it really wasn't a choice for me. The alternative was not a choice for me. I looked at it this way. My life was spared. It wasn't spared so I can live in despair and as a victim. I was victimized, you're right. And that's something that I think we've swung the pendulum the other way. And now that we admit that there is victimhood, then some people stay in victimhood.
Yes. Yeah.
And I was victimized, but that was done and over. There's nothing I can do to change what happened, but I can change and decide how I react to it.
I told your story to somebody. I had said that you're coming on the podcast and she had said, "Oh, it's amazing that you had overcome so much." And I was bothered by the phraseology of that, the overcome so much, because the way I look
Yeah.
at it, when I hear your story, it's a daily decision that you make to focus on the good things, the things that will bring you out of your trauma. We shape language, something happens to us, whether it's traumatic or not, and then we're climbing a hill. And at some point, we're going to be at the top of the hill, the sun's going to shine in our face, and everything is behind us. But
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
nothing ever leaves you, right? It's
Right.
happening now. You're telling the story. It's all happening now. And when you leave this podcast and you're alone in your humble abode there, you have to make a decision. Are you going to stay in that space? Are you going to talk about it for good? Are you going to wallow in it? These traumatic events that happen, not even traumatic, just as you get older, as you gain experiences, everything is always with you at the same time, like everything. Life is a circular thing. There are people who are addicts. They're always like, every day is day one. No amount of time from the last time I drank to now gives me any confidence because something might happen. I had a patient recently who relapsed after 10 years because not only does her relative have stage 4 cancer, after chemo, he fell on his head and then had to get brain surgery. And that was it. That was the straw. But it's an active decision that you make. I just want to commend you for that and give everyone credit in a way, because every day we wake up, we decide on what we want to focus on and how we want to live our lives and how we want to come off to other people. There's really no, I'm over a hill and everything that happened is behind me. I just don't have to look at it. It's really not like that. And when I look at you, because of the nature of your story and what you're going through, it just makes it all the more apparent to me that this is a daily decision, that everything is always happening at once. I just give you a lot of credit. Hello, ladies and gents. I'm RN Glenn, aka Nurse Dad, former Navy hospital corpsman, current ER nurse, and host of the Nurse Dad podcast. And if you like what we do here, please go to mynursedad.com and hit subscribe. While you're on the website, you'll see a pop-up. Fill it out for my free guide, and it will also enroll you in my newsletter. And no, I will not over email you or spam you. While you're on my website, scroll down and you'll run into my Instagram. In the meantime, thank you for what you do, and stay hungry, be humble, Nurse Dad out. I want to get into some of the things that you're a part of, a book that you're writing, a documentary that you're in, your website. I also want to harken back to something you had talked about with regards to near death. This person, she was sentenced to prison, right?
Yes, 20 years.
Which is rare that anyone gets held accountable like that.
Yeah.
Was there initially an attempt to make this go away without any kind of consequence, where this is just something that happened to you, as horrific as it is, the patient was going through blah, blah, blah? Is this a product of your fighting for it? Because you don't hear it all the time. I know a nurse who was attacked, and this particular nurse punched a patient off of them and was terminated for it, was fired for it. Another nurse who was strangled from behind, her neck was broken. And after a long recovery and going back to that same hospital, she was encountering a lot of lateral violence, just basically this people trying to push her out. And she eventually felt like she needed to go. You would think that somebody stabs a nurse and you hear a story like this, that automatically there are going to be consequences. That's doubtful. How did this mechanism start where this person is now facing multiple decades in prison?
It was a collaborative effort with the prosecuting attorney, Melissa Smith, of St. Louis County. She is a champion. She is phenomenal. I've never been a victim of violence, so I didn't know how this worked. But again, I'm a very tenacious person and very determined in the beginning that this is not going to get brushed under the rug. This is not going away. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that this woman is prosecuted and that I make changes within hospitals, because I always say I had 2 assailants that day. The woman who attacked me, and in a more covert way, the hospital that did not protect me. And we do not hold hospitals accountable for not keeping their staff safe. So that really is my main mission. However, there are multiple hurdles to get over here. There are multiple breaches that barriers that could have protected me from this happening. And it was just weeks after I was home from the hospital, I contacted my attorney and said, I want to speak to the prosecuting attorney. And he said, okay, I'll arrange it. And I went in to talk to the prosecuting attorney. At the time, it was Wesley Bell, and the assistant prosecuting attorney was Melissa Smith. And my case was assigned to her. This entire room was filled with people, the detective, victim advocate, prosecuting attorneys. It was unusual for the victim to initiate a meeting.
Yeah.
Apparently, I didn't know that. I'm like, I don't know how this works. I've never done this
Especially
before. But
you're going through it, surgeries. And
I still had, I think I still had a black eye from my surgery. I still looked like I just crawled out of a coffin. And I laugh that you understand I do that just
No, I
to not
understand.
cry. I've always been just a leader type person anyway. So I thought I'm going to take control of this and make sure that this goes the way I feel like it should go. I'm leaving this in other people's hands, just as I was when I was on the floor bleeding. I'm not waiting for others. I'm going to make sure that this goes the way it should go. I went in just to meet with them so they could know me, so they could see me, and so I could tell my story. And it was the first time I told my story publicly. And Melissa was across the table from me. She said, Tammy, you do not have to tell us all of this. We saw the video. You don't have to go through all of it. We're just grateful to meet you. And I said, no, I do need to tell my story, because when I tell my story, it gives me power over it. And I explained to her how many attacks had happened in that hospital, in that ER, and even in that triage area. And she was shocked. She did not even know. She did not know it was so pervasive. And after that, she just became very determined that she was going to make a change as well. And she started the hospital safety unit in St. Louis County, where she connects with police chiefs of St. Louis County, the hospitals of St. Louis County, and lets them know this is how the process should go. When a healthcare worker is attacked, call the police officers, write the damn report.
Yeah.
Don't say, oh, this is not going to be prosecuted. She said, that is my decision. It's going to be prosecuted. At this point, Wesley Bell got elected into Congress, and then she is now appointed as a head prosecuting attorney. So she had a lot of this autonomy. So she was just so moved by my story. And I want to believe, and I do believe, that she would have prosecuted Rivers to the fullest extent anyway, regardless of whether she knew me. But I do believe that it made a difference. And this could have gone to trial, but the public defender went in to do a plea. And this was the only way Melissa would agree to a plea. 20 years, she has to serve 85% before she's even considered for parole. And that's a pretty stiff penalty.
It is a stiff one, but she earned it. That's for sure.
Again, it could have gone to trial. She consulted me. She asked me what I thought of that. She said, we can go to trial if that's what you want to do. I said, I do not want to go to trial. I do not.
What was it that you didn't want to go to trial for? What was it? Was it because...
I would have. I absolutely would have. I can do anything if I have to. I had been, at that point, this was only in April, this past April, that the hearing was. I found out, I think in February this year, I was still thinking it was going to trial. So almost 4 years. So 3.5 years after my attack, this is still lingering.
Yeah.
I was going through a very difficult work comp case, trying to settle with them. That was possibly going to a hearing as well. They wanted to fight as much as they could. I'm suing the ambulance district. There's just so much on top of my healing and just trying to find my peace.
Yeah.
That is why, if that makes any sense.
Oh, it makes perfect sense.
I was doing so well that is, if I go to trial and I go through all of this again, and I just didn't want any setbacks. I was so fragile at that time, so very fragile. This last year, honestly, was the hardest. And one of the things that people say is, after a few months, they're like, but you made it through the hardest part. You survived. I said, no, the hardest part is surviving. The hardest part is I had to sell my house that I bought just 3 weeks before I was attacked. After being divorced and saving money and fixing my credit, I finally bought a house. And 3 weeks later, I was dead. Again, just one thing after another, I was losing. And no, the hardest part was I'm now homeless. I'm living off the money from the sale of my house. That is all I had. Work comp pay stopped. I
Really?
am
Work
not
comp? Work
employable.
comp? Yeah. That's,
Yeah, they saw because at a point you're deemed maximum medical improvement. So yes, even though I need continued care, this is as good as I'm going to get. They're not going to continue to pay me weekly, which was a fraction of what I was making
yeah.
anyway. But it
Yeah.
was enough at least to hold on to my home.
And it's incredible that the
I might have been
hospitals,
eating on leftovers for a week, but that's how
and this is why there needs to be
the
a
hospital doesn't have
standard.
to do anything.
Yeah, this is why there needs to be a standard, because the hospital should have been able to have been sued for gross negligence, but there's no standard. It's like hospital to hospital, even within a
No.
healthcare system. I've been part of healthcare systems where one hospital has a union and the other doesn't, and this hospital does it that way. Even within a healthcare system, every hospital is different. There's no standard.
Right. And state by state is different.
Yeah, of course.
Because in the state of Missouri, the corporation is very protected by the workman's compensation law. I learned a lot about workman's compensation. I thought it was an insurance for the employee when they get hurt.
Yeah.
It's really an insurance for the corporation to protect them from getting sued for liability. And that is the protection. I cannot sue the hospital, even though they were clearly grossly negligent. They were very aware that something like this was bound to happen.
The next day they
Took
had the
no
metal
measures. They
detectors
made no
out. The
changes.
next day.
And yeah, which is, it implies that they easily could have done it in the first place. But I cannot sue them because of the law in the state of Missouri. So all I got was work comp settlement. And again, work comp is a law. Therefore, there are caps, there are percentages. It's not a pain and suffering whatsoever. It does not take into consideration the severity, the lack of protection, none of that. It is percentage. How much of your body is affected permanently? That's what we pay out. Period. End of story.
Isn't it disgusting
Yeah.
too when you're going through the legal aspect, the way they try to diminish what you've gone through? They try to alter your story.
And, like you're an item.
Yeah, yeah.
And the fact that I gave nearly 20 years of my life to this hospital, I was damn good employee. And I don't want, and I'm sorry, I don't care. They have shown zero compassion. Zero compassion. They just say, oh, every day we're working on improving security at our SSM hospitals.
Yeah, sure you are.
If I were a patient and this happened to me within days, they would have been, hey, how can we settle with you? How can we make you never have to worry about a dime again for the rest of your life?
Yeah.
In the meantime, I was suffering, living off of borrowed money. I had borrowed so much money from so many people. I stopped asking the same people. I was so mortified and embarrassed. I'm like, I need to get through another month because this still isn't settled. I thought it was going to be settled next month. It's not.
Yeah.
Who can I reach out to now so I'm not living out of my car?
Here you're trying to
And
recover.
that's
You're trying
the
to regain
state I was
normal
in.
function. And that's where your mind should be. And you're
Yeah.
feeling homeless and losing a house, especially that you just bought, like that's monumental.
So
That's
I've
soul
sold
crushing.
furniture just to live off of. I sold things just to live. As you said, here I am trying to regain normal function, recover from severe PTSD, dealing with migraines every week that get me down for days, struggling just to cognitively function, dealing with pain every day. So many things. On top of that, how am I going to pay for food next week? How am I going to survive financially? Going a year and a half without a dime other than the money I sold my house for, and then it ran out. And no, not a bit of compassion from SSM to Paul Hospital where this happened. Zero. They stood 100% behind. We have workman's compensation. That is the law, and that's the way it goes.
What plan do you have forward?
That's how it goes.
Like you're a great organizer. You were talking about what you had, the nonprofit for Haiti, and you ever think about
Yeah.
Since you're an incredible leader, very knowledgeable, you ever think about getting into something like that or starting something like that?
Yes. Yes. Actually, I have not made it official, but the Nightingale Front is something that I started mainly as an idea within months after this occurred. My vision for it is that it will be a nonprofit organization that will not only lobby for protections of healthcare professionals, but also be a resource. Where can we go? Because one thing that I learned was there are a lot of resources out there for first responders. There are not a lot of resources out there for nurses that work within the hospital. People assume that nurses working in a hospital will be taken care of by the hospital. And as if first responders are out there in the field and there's no protection or anyone taking care of them. Many of them are unionized. Many of them have a lot of organizations that help them through PTSD, through substance abuse, through any kind of recovery. Nurses don't have that kind of support.
It's true when you
There
think
really
about
is
it.
not. And if it weren't for the fact that I was at one time a first responder as a flight nurse and worked very closely with a particular organization where we flew into their events, or when I was a business owner with my ex-husband, we donated to them. So I was involved with them before this happened to me. Therefore, they were very willing to help me, thank God. And when that happened, I thought, what would I do without this? What do nurses have? We don't have anything. So that's something that I would like to see the Nightingale Front be. And I just got my settlement within the last month. So I had this money that I'm like, okay, I'm going to finish writing my book because that costs money.
That
Get an
book is going to be
editor.
that,
I'm going to
that book is called what?
a Frontline Survivor.
Okay.
Yeah. It just came to me when I decided I wanted to write a memoir. We were still in COVID when this happened. Just kind of coming out of COVID. I was like, frontline heroes. My gosh, that is such a slap in the face. They treated us like dogs. The leaderships are all, we have these frontline heroes, and they just treated us like dogs. And I was like, no, we're frontline survivors. And that was the idea of the title of the book. And I'm meeting with a writing coach and finally I wrote the 14-chapter manuscript, but now I'm getting it edited and such so I can get it published because that costs money. And obviously I was just trying to survive for so long.
Good on you for
And-
getting it done. I've been on page 3 in my memoir for 4 months now, I think it is. But no, it's just incredible. All these moving parts are going and you're still getting this stuff done. You're also in a documentary, right? Suck It Up, Buttercup.
Yes, that was just a serendipity thing. I had just moved here to California and I went to lunch with a friend and someone was seated right next to us with another friend. She happened to come in and she's like, oh my gosh, you guys are here. This is great. Tammy, actually, I'm so glad you're here because I would love for you to meet Todd Otten. He is an executive producer and a physician of a documentary that they were out filming Mark Cuban for this portion of the documentary and another physician. So he asked me about my story. And he said, I really would love to have you in the documentary. The documentary is called Suck It Up, Buttercup. It's not specifically about violence against healthcare workers. It's really about the burnout of physicians, nurses, and those in healthcare because of the many failures of healthcare. Insurance companies, executives, profit over patients, all of that.
You didn't tell him it was just the external carotid though, right? You left that part out.
Yeah, I played it out in that one. I was like, oh, my branch or my carotid artery. I always clarify that because anyone who has done trauma work are like, you're not.
No, I know.
getting
It
out
makes
the
you.
arteries.
It was very cute of you as a trauma nurse. It was just funny in its moment. Oh, okay. I'm glad.
I got to clarify the X-ray.
If I ever see someone stabbed in the neck, I'm going to check and see if I can go on break. Yeah. Oh,
Oh,
external.
it's
All
just
right.
your external. You're okay.
All
You
right,
can
let
get
me-
up and run.
yeah.
Tammy did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the funny thing going back to that, when I was running down that hall, this is such a trauma nurse thing. I was thinking, if I run, my heart rate goes up. I lose more blood. But if I walk, it takes more time. I'm literally calculating this in my head while I was running anyway, because that was just nature.
Nobody interrupted you. If you can get him a blanket for somebody, and
No, but again, another miracle
Where's my food?
is a physician assistant just happened to be coming through the door between that hallway and the trauma room. And she just came through. So she held the door open for me. So that was nice.
Oh, wow.
And her eyes too were just wide. She just looked at me. She held the door and I ran through. Excuse me, I'm coming through.
It's crazy.
I was sloshing.
There must have
in.
been so much blood. It's incredible.
It was. I tell the story that I can still feel the blood sloshing in my Danskos as I was running. It was already in my feet. It was already just soaked on my scrubs.
For people to learn more about you, your website is tammyscottrn.com. And there'll be links to that
Yeah.
below as well in the description.
Yes. Thank you. My social media is linked there as well as my Substack.
What's your
And a
Instagram
place-
handle? Just for those listening.
It's tammy.scott.rn. Again, the documentary, Second Up Buttercup. Right now it's only in select theaters and we're hoping to get it on streaming soon. But yeah, keep watch for. If you sign up on my website, I'll keep everyone up to date on publishing of the book and the Nightingale Front coming into fruition. And I really want to provide those services for nurses.
You had mentioned a near-death experience in the beginning. Now, I've had a near-death experience. I'm not going to talk about it for fear that I sound like a narcissist. But if you go to my YouTube and hit podcast,
We'll have to have that too.
We will. I do have my shortest podcast ever, which is 14 minutes of me in front of the camera in detail talking about it for those that are interested in that. But this is about you.
I'll find it.
This is about you. Could you elaborate on that? Because I feel like that's a spiritual
It's a very
strength that
it is.
we should talk about.
Yeah, it's nothing extremely profound unless you're in it, of course. But it was a very quick moment where during surgery, I found myself floating above as if the ceilings were as tall as the sky. And I was just floating so high up in the ceiling. I call it floating because I don't know. I assume I was because I was looking down.
Did you see yourself?
I didn't. And this is why. I could see the team of everyone working around me, which included some nurses that I knew because I'd worked in that hospital so long. Some went from ER to OR, and I sat down on them, and I recognized some of them, but I couldn't see myself. As I'm looking at the table, over my body was what I call an angel. Just like face to face, foot to foot, as if this were my body, head to toe. The angel, head to toe, right over my body. Just a white robe, shoulder length, whitish hair that was wavy. I didn't see wings, but I called it an angel. It was just hovering straight over my body the whole time. And I remember looking at that thinking, that angel isn't only healing, that angel is protecting me.
That's a nice cinnamon.
It was a knowing, it was a gnosis. And I recall that moment thinking I had an option to check out and move on. I didn't code. From what I understand, I didn't code. But it was as if I was given an option. Are you done? Because I have lived a life, right? I'm tired. And I thought, no, I still have so much that I think I need to do. And suddenly it was over. That was it.
Curious.
Next thing I know, I'm waking up in the ICU. So
when you were given that choice, was there a feeling of home? Like hey, if you do come, we know you're back home.
There was no fear.
Yeah.
Only just this beautiful feeling of home. I love that you said that. You have experienced this.
I had one. I'm just saying.
Because I've never really felt like I've had a home. Again, I grew up in a home of severe abuse.
Yeah.
And I just never really, even the home I raised my children in, I was very particular about making sure that they grew up in a very stable home. I never felt like it was forever home. I have moved around and moved around. I've never felt, but there in that place, I felt, this is where I go. This is where I belong. Yeah.
It's like you were there already. It's like you returned.
Yeah. Not afraid. Even as I was rolling into OR and I had that tunnel vision and the sound was going away and I felt like I was passing out. I felt like I was going to die. I recall not at all being afraid, being even a little bit excited. Oh, what's this next adventure?
Yeah.
We're a very adventurous person. I'm like, what's this death thing going to be about? This might be exciting. And then I thought, no, I'm not going to let that, as you were saying, woman, also watch what I say. She's not going to win. I'm dying at the hands of her. And then it just, all the sounds and everything came back, and the lights and then everyone had stopped the stretcher, and I could hear my monitor, and the monitor, the
Yeah.
sounds of the monitor.
Yeah.
And I could hear that. Oh, well, I know what that means. Because the stretcher stopped on the way to OR, and everyone was just kind of, oh shoot, are we going to code her here? And then I was back. So I was fine. And then that near death, I guess I will call it.
My heart didn't stop either. It took me 20 years to
It's an out-of-body experience.
It took me 20 years to phrase it. If you were to travel, in your case, from California, that's right, Cam, you see, you live in California?
I do know.
Yeah. You're leaving California and crossing Nevada and the East Coast. As you're traveling, you're going to new places. You certainly feel time and distance. But at some point, if you're circling the globe, you're going to start to hit Hawaii and the Pacific. I mean, then before you know it, you're going to hit the Golden Coast, and you're going to be back. And so as time is going, as you're making this journey, as you're getting older, at some point, things start to look familiar again. And that's kind of how I look at it. I was there and I was home, but you know what? On my life journey, I was in France. If I'm supposed to circle the world, I still have a ways to go. And that's how I have tried to explain it to myself, is you're back home, but you didn't take the long way. You're supposed to go around the whole globe to get back here. You're supposed to have your whole life. And anytime you cut it short is a tragedy. I'm blessed enough to be in a situation where I can continue on, but I don't know.
I love that.
That's
a great description. I like that. And that's that's how I felt. I was like, no, I didn't complete the circle yet. I still have places to go. So I felt like I was given a choice, and I was given the choice to come back. And again, asking how I got through each day, there are multiple ways. And that's another way that I was saved for a reason. I decided to stay for a reason. And though my life looks completely different now, I'm no longer the ER trauma nurse, flight nurse, all the things that I felt defined me. I have a new life, and I can still define it however I want. The beauty of it is I have a blank slate. I can do what I want. And as I started my nursing career as a humanitarian, as somebody who went into mission work, now my mission is to protect healthcare professionals in the hospital setting. And at first I recall thinking, I want to rescue everyone out of those hospitals. They're awful. I'm going to help everyone find another career, get out of nursing. And with some searching, I realized, wait a minute, this is our career. This is our turf. They're not pushing us out. We need to reclaim this beautiful, amazing profession that we are all so proud to be in. And we are not giving up. And I know so many nurses are tired and they're leaving the bedside, and I do not blame them. I support everyone in their journey, wherever they're going, however they feel, whatever they need to do to protect themselves, emotionally, psychologically, physically. I support that. Yet at the same time, I have nothing left to lose, and I will fight for them. I know many of them are afraid to fight. They're afraid to lose their jobs. We know what happens when they speak out. I have the voice, right? I still have my voice. And I have a voice that can be a voice for every one of them, even those who are afraid. And as much as I wish everyone would join together and speak out and take that risk, because nothing good comes without a risk, I also understand the single mother who's trying to feed her children, that doesn't want to get blacklisted or is afraid to lose their job. I understand that, and I have sympathy for them. So I'll carry the load.
Hello, ladies and gents. I'm RN Glenn, aka Nurse Dad, former Navy hospital corpsman, current ER nurse. And if you like what we do here on the Nurse Dad podcast, please go to mynursedad.com and hit subscribe. Thank you very much. And of course, stay hungry, be humble, Nurse Dad out. We talk about patient care, but I think the definition is wrong, because at some point, a patient became a customer, and then a patient survey became something that determines compensation, insurance compensation based on a survey. But we talk to patients all the time. It's a collaborative experience. And so patient care should be as much about taking care of the provider, the healthcare provider, as much as the
Yes.
patient. Because when I'm
Yeah.
comfortable, when I'm happy, when I'm satisfied, I'm a much better nurse.
Yeah.
It's just a fact. And it doesn't affect
Because
the
how
hospital's
can
bottom
we,
line because you're producing better healthcare providers and you're going to get better surveys in the end. But to be
yeah,
so lopsided one way, it just goes to show you a lot of people are hacks. A lot of people are statistical people, as Carl Jung warned, people who
yeah,
are just all about the charts and the numbers. And really, it doesn't occur to them to think of the human element. I remember I was hired at a place, right? I was experienced, but I still, for a couple of weeks, had to work with a nurse, another nurse, so I can understand that hospital. So I'm working in the ER. We have about 8 patients at this hospital. That's the max. But there's 2 of us. And I got to say, the patient turnover was just incredible. To hospitals, in this case, hire more nurses so that maybe instead of 8 patients per nurse, you have 3 or 4, which I think they're doing in California. You might be hiring more nurses, but you're making more money because where the turnover is twice, is
yeah.
50% more. And the patient
Because you can
satisfaction.
accomplish so much more when you only have 4 instead of 8, and you can get them discharged faster, and you can complete their CAT scan that they're waiting on. It's not functional, so dysfunctional.
I was doing things I
How?
never, sorry to cut you off. There was a delay. I'm sorry
No,
about
that's
that,
okay.
Tammy. But there was,
No, it's
I
okay.
was doing things I never would have thought. Oh, you know what? I'm just going to put in a better IV because I got some time. Or, you know what? Oh, let me see. Where
Ah,
is that tray? He wanted that. Let me go see if we have that. I have no time for that on a normal New York floor of 8 to 12 people. But that's a better nurse right there. That was a better patient experience right there. You'd make it back so much more if you just put the human element first. You're hiring more people, but you'd make more money. And it's a shame that you have to pitch it to hospitals. You'll make more money. Not that you have, yeah, I don't know. I'm babbling,
well,
but
no, it's so true. And don't you feel so much better about your career, about your profession when you give good care? Therefore, morale is higher. Therefore, you're just a better employee in general. You're not as burned out when you can do that. And I don't understand why hospital leadership does not understand that. How do they expect us to feel safe saving people's lives when we are always looking over our shoulder? How can we save lives when we fear for our own?
certainly I've been attacked. And a lot of times on units, the male nurse is, I won't say expected, but there's definitely a lot of collective hope that I'll show up to something. But I feel like female nurses really have to go through it. I've taken over patients that I know were a nightmare to the female nurse, and I get in there. That's not going to fly, buddy. And so to have you here, Tammy, with me was very helpful. I don't even want to see the playback because I was looking a few times, so disturbed by the story. I look like I'm upset, like I'm angry, which I think I am actually. But I was wearing it on my face, just bothered that this can happen to you, Tammy. You are inspiration. And I'm not just saying that. The fact that you can come out of it like you have, that's not common. It's incredible. And I give you a lot of credit. And I thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much. Such an honor. I feel like we could just got talking and talking. I'm sorry.
Oh, we could have. Tammy, the near death thing, we should talk offline sometime
I
about that.
know. I know. When you started that, I was like, oh, okay, let's.
It's bothersome when you hear somebody say, oh, my daughter wants to be a nurse. She's going to nursing school.
Mm.
I'm just like, you sure about that? It's like that meme. You sure about that?
Well,
It sucks.
my oldest son is a nurse. He's a neuro ICU nurse in Tallahassee. And as you were saying, Glenn, he very often is called to help restrain, to help male nurses are at risk more, actually, even though 1 in 10 nurses are male, they're at higher risk of getting harmed because of that reason. And then recently, my youngest daughter-in-law, who I thought was going to school to be a radiology tech, decided she's going to be a nurse. She was in the ICU room when I woke up and was extubated. And I was like, girl, I don't understand why you would want to do that. But again, that is one of the reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing. We need nurses. I'm not going to discourage them.
They
I'm
say
proud.
they
I
say the
actually
worst
didn't
of it.
discourage her.
They say the worst of it hasn't even happened yet. Then in 7 or 8 years, when you have the mass retirement and things like that,
Yeah.
that the worst is still ahead of us.
Yeah. I don't even know how that's going to be managed. I didn't discourage her because that's just not my personality. I just said, I'm really proud of you. You're so smart. You're going to do this. You're going to do just great. And then I thought, we have to really make a difference. And every time there is an event like last night in Delaware, I did not sleep last night. I just did not sleep.
Just
And
for those that might be watching this in a month or 2 months or a year, what happened in Delaware?
there was a shooting in Wilmington, Delaware, at a hospital. I don't recall the
Yeah,
name
I
of the
saw that.
hospital. 2 staff members were shot. I heard the report this morning that it was another staff member who shot them. Again, I don't know. This is all news and breaking.
Yeah, it is
So
breaking.
who knows how things change. But each time there was the nurse who was stabbed in the chest in Texas a couple of months ago, in California, every day. At least 2 nurses an hour are violently attacked. And that's what's reported. So
Right.
many do not go reported. And every time I think I'm behind the game. And yes, I spent a lot of time recovering, but I have a lot to do. And I realize that there are a lot of bills out there, and I am rather harsh on the nursing associations because I feel like they can do a lot more than present bills that have stiffer penalties for the assailant. Yay, that's great. But those who are in psychosis, those who want to be violent, are not going. The woman who stabbed me was not going to think twice about stabbing me because it's a felony.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
she's going to have a stiffer penalty. She was just like, so how about if we change the focus a little? Or, hey, we can walk and chew gum. Do that. However, we need to start holding hospitals accountable. And if it's financially hurting them, then it will speak to them. Because losing nurses to violence, PTSD, or death does not speak to them. Losing money speaks to them.
Oh, yeah.
And that's how we're going to make these changes. The hospitals are going to have to be fined for these kind of violations, for not keeping their staff safe. Right now, OSHA has the general duty clause that says that hospitals need to have a plan for workplace violence. That is the loosest. What? Well,
Yeah.
okay, so the plan can be, we lock the doors at 8 o'clock at night, except in the ER.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Okay, so this happened to Tammy. What is your plan? Oh, that's your plan where the door's locked at 8 o'clock at night, but this happened in... Oh, okay. You're free.
Yeah.
No fine.
Right.
Why are we leaving it up to the hospitals to decide what their protocols and their SOPs are for safety?
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem. The people that are making the money are making the rules. It's not how it should work.
No, we need oversight. We need accountability, and it's going to have to be financial because that's the only thing that speaks to them.
You know what? Before is not the ending or the saying
Sorry.
goodbye. We expect that's
I
fine.
know, I just have to stop talking.
This one's more organic. I'll just sign off and I'll be in contact. Tammy, of
Yeah,
course.
perfect.
Thank you so much for coming on and giving me your time. It is much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thanks.